Reverend Dale Worley, and I'm very grateful to see you all here this evening. We're very excited to present not only a classical concert by some very talented folks, but also tonight is a food raiser for Farm Truck 912. How many are familiar with the Farm Truck? It's a wonderful outreach program at the Forsyth Farmers Market. We learned last Sunday from Kristen Brough, who is the head of the Farm Truck Project, that over 53,000 people in Savannah are what are called food insecure, meaning that they don't have access to fresh, organic, healthy foods. I know in my neighborhood, if you don't have a car and you're walking or taking the bus to get your groceries, a lot of folks go to Family Dollar or Parker's, somewhere like that, to get their groceries. So once a week at 8 different places in our city, the farm truck goes out and parks for a couple of hours and sells fresh, organic produce that's locally sourced from within 50 miles of Savannah. So it's a wonderful project, and you probably saw, you may or may not have seen, there's a list of food that we're collecting through next Sunday. We're collecting things like beans, rice, oats, millet, because the farm truck is going to start giving away these foods when they're parked in the different neighborhoods. So if you want to know more about that, you can come and talk to me. After the concert, there's going to be light refreshments served in our fellowship hall. And I know that Sanford is under strict orders to go directly to the fellowship hall after the concert. So tonight is not only nourishment for the soul, but it's nourishment for the body as well. And I'm very tickled that we have Sanford Jones and Rebecca Flaherty here with us tonight. And I'll say no more except welcome to If Music Be the Food of Love, Play On.
It is really a pleasure to see so many familiar faces and a number of unfamiliar faces. We welcome you all. One thing that Rebecca and I have in common is that we never perform what we don't love. So really, every piece on the program was chosen very carefully because it speaks to our hearts. Before we start, we have a special guest tonight. This is a personal reference. When I was growing up back in Southwest Virginia, I had a cousin in Blacksburg, where Virginia Tech is. And we played together, and his mother was my aunt, and she played for the silent movies in Radford on Saturday afternoon. She was the pianist when the silent movies would come on. Well, that was my cousin, but Howard I haven't seen in 55 years. But Rebecca has introduced me to his son, who lives here in Savannah. Phil Price, where are you? Please stand up. Welcome, fella. He is working at the Garrison School now, and so our paths have crossed, and we had catch up on old times at Cincha Bean, and I'm sure we'll see each other again. Tonight we're taking a journey together. It's a long one. In real time, it's only about an hour and 25 minutes, but in symbolic time, it's 350 years. And we're starting with late Renaissance, Baroque, classical, romantic, impressionistic, and modern. So just enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. And as Dale said, I hope you'll join us afterward. Judy, my wife, and Becky, one of the pillars of this church, have set up a really lovely reception. So come and chat a while and eat something.
Welcome. I hate to begin the program by talking some more, but before we sing this song for you, I wanted to just tell you a little bit about Henry Purcell, who is known as the greatest composer produced by Great Britain before the 21st century. And before the 21st century, not very many people knew that. Not very many people know his music because nearly everything he wrote has to be what's called realized. And for musicians, that means that we have to work a little bit harder. So if you look at Purcell's early his works, his autograph works, you will see the melody line with the words. My part is all written out. For Sanford, though, there's a bass line with some numbers next to the bass notes that tell you how to harmonize it. And on top of that, you're supposed to kind of know how to embellish those harmonies. That is not written out. So for centuries, his music, Purcell's music, went unenjoyed, unplayed. And so then comes along British composer Benjamin Britten, who's also one of my favorite composers. He fell in love with Purcell's music and took it upon himself to champion the music of Henry Purcell. In his lifetime, he realized 56 of Purcell's songs. So what you're hearing here, what Sanford is playing, is Benjamin Britten's written out realization of Henry Purcell's song, If Music Be the Food of Love. The first line of this song comes from Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. It opens the play Twelfth Night. And then a poet, sort of quasi-poet, Henry Heveningham, took that and expounded upon it, and that's where we get the lyrics for this song. And it's one of my favorite things, and I've never been able to sing it until tonight for you.
J.S. Bach was a very prolific composer. He was also a very prolific reproducer of other human beings. He had 20 children. And I don't know how he had time to write all this music, but somehow he did it. And he wrote 24 preludes. Now, a prelude is generally thought of as something that precedes something else. But in musical terms, a prelude is a generic form of a short piece, usually, built on one musical motif. He has taken some chords and broken them up, and the whole piece is nothing but broken chords. For me, this is very much of a reverie piece. It's an abstract piece, and growing up I thought, oh, abstract music, that means it's about nothing. But of course it's not about nothing. It's about for you to decide, because it will mean something different for every person who hears it. This is Prelude 1 in C major. Moving along to what we call the classical period is a piece by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And isn't it coincidental that our daughter, who works at the Arts Center in Hilton Head, has given us tickets to see the stage production of Amadeus Sunday afternoon, made from the movie of the same name. And if you like to read about musicians, get the book. It just came out several years ago, called Mozart's Starling. My cousin gave it to me, and it's a 3-hour read. And in those days, in the 1700s, people of the middle class in Vienna would capture a starling, treat it very well. It became like a family member. It could fly around the house, and the starling has the unique ability to memorize and reproduce melodic tunes. And Mozart's starling could sing, with his voice, the theme of the first piano concerto. Now that's the truth. It's not something I made up. So, enjoy. When I think of Mozart, I think of order, most of all. It's beautiful, but it's also orderly. The form, the harmonic progressions. And when my son David was in college, he called one night about 10:30 and said, "Hey Dad, I just want to check in with you. I came back from the library and I put on Mozart, and did it calm me down? I am ready to sleep. Mozart is so beautiful." And I thought, well, sow the seeds and maybe they'll take root. Mozart Sonata in G major.
is also one of my favorite. If I had to, in my top 5 composers, Benjamin Britten is there, but Mozart is probably number 1. And I always think of order and symmetry and beauty when I think of Mozart, but I've gotten to know him through doing some of his operas and reading some of his letters. And if any of you know where I'm going with this, he was a very, very funny person, and potty humor was the order of the day with Mozart, which is something that, listening to something like that, you wouldn't think that who wrote that was really into fart jokes, but Mozart really was. And I happen to be 12-year-old internally, and I think that's really funny too. So I actually have written in my notes a book recommendation for you, which is Mozart's Letters, Mozart's Life. I wish you would read this book if you are even slightly interested in Mozart and his life. The Amadeus play is sort of loosely based on his life. It's not quite, you know, there are some fallacies in there, but I think it captures his character really well. So do that. And I have, if you forget, if you don't, not writing that down and you're interested, I'll tell you when we're in the fellowship hall after this. This little song, he wrote songs, so they are stand-apart pieces that don't come from an opera. This is called To Chloe, on Chloe. And I looked up some background information written by a scholar, because if I had to write it myself and say it to you, I would blush. I might even blush now. But I'm going to read this to you without trying not to blush about it, okay? First, here's the translation. When love shines from your blue, bright, open eyes, and with the pleasure of gazing into them, my heart pounds and glows. You'll hear that in the music. You hear this. He's so funny. He illustrates words really well. And I hold you, and I kiss your rosy warm cheeks. Lovely maiden, and I clasped you trembling in my arms. Here comes the part where I blush. Maiden, maiden, and I press you firmly to my breast, which at the last moment, only at death, will let you go. Then my intoxicated gaze is shadowed by a gloomy cloud, and I sit then exhausted but blissful next to you. Now, the words in that very last little section where you'll hear, let's see, can we just play that part so you know what it is when we get there? This right here. Yeah. Yeah. Den Mirage, den Blick umschattet, eine düstere Wolke mir. He adds these little rests in the middle of words so that you're breathless, right? And this Mozart scholar says, so there comes into being an almost hectically breathless, panting expression which leaves one in no doubt at all as to what sort of dark cloud this is. Who knew? If you just do a little research, you'll find things in classical music that you just didn't know. There. letzten Augenblicke sterbend, sterbend not ich von sie gräßt, denn berauschte Blick umschattet eine düstere Funke mir, eine düstere Funke mir. Und ich sitze dann ermattet, ermattet, ermattet. Aber selig neben dir, ermattet, ermattet, ermattet. Aber selig neben dir, aber selig neben dir, aber selig neben dir, neben dir.
Like Bach, Frédéric Chopin made a set of pieces of 24 preludes. And when we were in Paris, we went to Père Lachaise Cemetery, and we read on Chopin's tombstone that he had asked his friends if they would please, before they buried him, cut out his heart and send it to Poland, because that's where his mother was from. And his father was a professor in France, but they lived a lot of their life in Poland. So you hear the Polonaise, you know, which is one of the national dances from Poland. And sometimes you forget. And the other thing about Chopin that I found fascinating is that he built his reputation on only 20 concerts. In all of the times he was composing, he only performed 20 times. But he is perhaps the most performed composer of piano music. That was his forte, of any of the great composers. This is Prelude in D flat by Chopin. Some critics call it the raindrop because throughout the raindrop prelude, you hear the drops of the rain. First a little light shower, and then in the middle a thunderstorm, but you can still hear the rain, then the thunder disappears, and back comes the shower. Chopin takes the bow.
It's the year 1904, and Lieutenant Benjamin Franklin Pinkerton has been stationed with the U.S. Navy in Japan. His buddy has convinced him that it would be a great use of his money to buy a little house, and with that house comes 3 servants and a wife, a geisha. And Colonel Pinkerton thinks to himself, you know, I'd really like an American wife, ideally, but, you know, I live moment to moment, so why not? This will be fun. So he marries Cho-Cho-san, who is Madame Butterfly. And she falls madly in love with him, not realizing that he has no intention of staying with her. And some time passes, and his ship is sent back to America. And she stays in the little house. And she's with her maid, Suzuki. And some more time passes, and she gives birth to a little boy. So at the point in Madame Butterfly when this aria happens, 3 years have passed. And she's been waiting in that same little house for him to come back. The money is running out, and her companion and servant, Suzuki, is saying, girl, we need to find some other kind of arrangement because he's not coming back. And this aria is Cho-Cho-san's response. She says, one fine day, we'll see a thread of smoke out on the horizon, and then the ship will appear. The white ship will sail into port. It will fire its cannon. Can you see? He's back. I don't go down to meet him, not I. I'll put myself on the brow of the hill and wait a long time, and I won't mind. I won't mind the long wait. Out of the bustling town comes a man, a tiny dot, coming up the hill. Who can it be? And when he gets here, what will he say? He'll call, butterfly, from afar. I'll say nothing, I'll stay hidden, partly to tease him, and partly so as not to die when we first meet again. He'll be a little worried and call, little wife, verbena blossom, the names he used to call me when he was here. This will all come true, I promise you. Keep your fear to yourself. With a faith that can't be shaken, I will wait for him. This is bel di.
just in case. Now, if we were in New York City, we'd be paying top dollar. Hello? Can we have a hand for the performance? And just hang on, they wrecked me at rehearsal today. The finale was amazing. So, we just wanted you to know that we're going to receive an offering tonight. 100% of what you give tonight goes to support Sanford Jones Youth Opera International. You may know that Sanford and Judy travel all over the world teaching young children about music and performance and movement. So we're so grateful to have a space to support that tonight. So thank you. Did you want to say anything?
No, just thank you, thank you, thank you. We
So
appreciate that.
if you want to write a check, write it to Unity, so we put everything in one pot and give Sanford a check. If you want to use your credit card, there are envelopes in the backs of your seat, or you can go onto our website at unitysavannah.org and donate online. And we also want you to know that tonight's performance is being live streamed to our website and to YouTube. So if you would like to share the concert with your friends later, or go back and watch it again, just go to our website, unitysavannah.org. So I will say a little blessing, if you'll indulge me, over our offering tonight. We just give thanks, and we are grateful for this time together, for this beautiful music that we're getting to experience, and for all the good gifts that God so freely gives. So we ask for a blessing on Sanford and Rebecca, Judy, all the work they do in the world, and we say thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
Chosen folk
Debussy in France, the late 19th, early 20th century, broke all the rules of Romanticism and Classicism. His harmonic combinations, his use of rhythm, his use of imagery, like Monet did in visual arts, Debussy and Ravel did it in the sonic arts, the music of the time. And it came to be known as impressionistic, because it isn't like Mozart, who spells it out for you. He gives impressions of what the moon looks like on a given night. So just, if you wish, close your eyes, or just imagine yourself in a good spot looking at a beautiful moon, courtesy of Claude Debussy.
skies and heartbreaking horizons of rapid sunsets and pale dawns, I watch your melancholy days flow past like a torrent. On the wings of regret, my thoughts are carried, as if our time could ever be relived, wandering dreamingly the enchanted slopes where my youth once used to smile. I see in the bright sunlight of triumphant memory the scattered roses reblooming in bouquets, and tears well up in my eyes, tears which my heart at 20 had already forgotten. That are new to me, so I've got my little music stand here with them because I want to present them as well as I can to you. I have sung settings of Emily Dickinson's poems before, but I am so pleased to be with the actual composer of these three settings, which I'm going to read to you now. I'll tell you how the sun rose a ribbon at a time. The steeples swam in amethyst. The news like squirrels ran. The hills untied their bonnets. The bobolinks begun. Then I said softly to myself, that must have been the sun. But how he set, I know not. There seemed a purple stile, which little yellow boys and girls were climbing all the while. Till when they reached the other side, a dominie in gray put gently up the evening bars and led the flock away. I'll tell you how the sun rose a ribbon at a time. The steam swam in amethyst, the news like squirrels ran, the hills untied their bonnets, the bobolink's begun. Then I said softly to myself, that must have been the sun. But how he set, I know not. There seemed a purple stile, which little yellow boys and girls were climbing all the while, till when they reached the other side, a dawning in grey put gently up the evening bars, and led the flock away. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name the livelong day to an admiring bog. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell. They'd advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public, like a frog. To tell one's name the livelong day to an admiring bog. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove. He knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too for his civility. We passed the school where children played, their lessons scarcely done. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice but a mound. Since then 'tis centuries, but each feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were toward eternity. Stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. American folk songs by Aaron Copland. Shall we gather by the river, where bright angels' feet have trod, with its crystal tide forever flowing by the throne of God? Yes, we'll gather by the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints by the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we'll gather by the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints by the river, flowing by the throne of God, that flows by the throne of God.
There's going to be a quiz after this song to see how many of the animals you can remember.
I bought me a cat, my cat pleased me. I fed my cat under yonder tree. My cat says, fill my fee. I bought me a duck, my duck pleased me. I fed my duck under yonder tree. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle my fee. I bought me a goose, my goose pleased me. I fed my goose under yonder tree. My goose says, quack, quack. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle my fee. I bought me a hen, my hen pleased me. I fed my hen under yonder tree. My hen says, shimmy shack, shimmy shack. My goose says, quack, quack. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle my fee. I bought me a pig, my pig pleased me. I fed my pig under yonder tree. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy shack, shimmy shack. My goose says, quack, quack. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle my fee. I bought me a cow, my cow pleased me. I fed my cow under yonder tree. My cow says, baa, baa. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy shack, shimmy shack. My goose says, quack, quack. My duck says, quack, quack. My cat says, fiddle my fee. I bought me a horse, my horse pleased me. I fed my horse under yonder tree. My horse says, neigh, neigh. My cow says, baa, baa. My pig says, griffy, griffy. My hen says, shimmy shack, shimmy shack. My goose says, quack, quack. My duck says, quack, quack. My
Let me lead you from your solitude.
1947. The lyrics are by Velma Hitchcock, and the music by
Ernest Charles.
Ernest Charles. This piece was in response to the terror and the disaster and the widespread panic and sorrow of the Sanford. So it speaks to our own generation when there is a lot of difficulty socially, politically, economically, and in terms of the environment, ecologically. But if you listen carefully to the last page, hope springs eternal. We last performed this when we did a benefit concert at Asbury Church just following 9/11, when the mentality of everyone was so very, very sad. So, however, if you listen to the end, we're gonna end this on a high note, no pun intended.
Oh, whatever, let's just go eat.
Go have something to eat. Thank you.